Hello. So good to be here. We are just waiting for Helia to pop on. And we are.
Hey, hey,
Hey!
how you?
Sorry. How are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good. I'm buzzing. I'm like so excited.
I'm excited too. I
Where should we start? I don't know.
don't know. How's your day?
My day has been really good. I'm gonna light some placenta. My day has been really good. I had the most insane. I've never done cupping before, and I walked into my acupuncturist office today, and I told him like what I was feeling, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna do some cupping today," and I was like, "Okay," and he did it, and the way that oh my gosh, he put it on, and it's like he told me that it like pulls your muscles, whereas like massages like goes into the muscle. Cupping like pulls your muscle out, and I could feel my heartbeat in the cups. Like I could feel like my whole all of it just like dissipating. And I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I have marks, but oh my gosh, it was like right after Cacao integration week too. Just like all the emotions arose, and then he just took them all out with the cups.
That's really amazing. I'm outside, so if it gets loud out here, I might have to move inside, but
Okay.
I'm out in this magic. Yeah, I've never had cupping before, but I've heard that it's
It
intense.
was definitely intense, but I also kind of like pain, so I kind of liked it. Yeah. But how was your day? I saw your waterfall pictures. Oh my gosh.
Heal felt like a full rebirth moment for me. I was like, thank God. Thank God. And so much thanks and so much gratitude for just like where I finally arrived after what feels like years of like making the space to get here, that I arrived like as we finished the cacao attunement and fast. Like I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude. I feel so like happy in my body, and I'm like, yes, we're
Yes.
here.
Yes, I feel that. Okay, so let's talk about Cacao del Sol.
Yeah.
um, okay, so let's start off. I want to hear about your experience working. We've talked about this a little bit before in another lives, but working specifically with cacao ceremonially versus like utilizing it as a superfood or anything like that.
Okay, so cacao is this magical fruit that has magical beans inside, and it really is a superfood. It's loaded with like magnesium, fiber, zinc, iron. Like the list goes on and on and on. Potassium, uh, flavonoid. It releases dopamine and serotonin. So it does all of these really, really beautiful things for your body, but it also has a spirit. It has a spirit to it. That's the plant medicine. And every sentient being, including plants, has a spirit. And cacao has a huge spirit. And like the Mayans used cacao to connect to their ancestors to help navigate between like the afterlife and like transitionary phases, for birth, for rebirth, for all kinds of things. So the spirit of cacao has been cultivated for a long time, And then they've also got gods and goddesses associated with cacao and the spirit of cacao. And so when you sit in ceremony or you sit intentionally with cacao, you basically open the door for her wisdom, his wisdom, their wisdom, whatever you want to call it. It's a plant for the cacao to be delivered to you and through you. And it provides a space to work more intentionally with the heart, with the mind, which the superfood aspect of the cacao works with those things very deeply. So when we can tune into the body, mind, and spirit all in one container, then the actual integration and the energetic processes can actually like take form and not just be like a one time, oh, I got my magnesium for the day or I got my serotonin for the day. It's no, it becomes this experience where you can work to cultivate the aspects of yourself that you're looking to bring more awareness to.
Yes, I love this. And I feel like in the spiritual community in general, I feel like we're all like a lot of the time we're up here with like all the like theories and I mean they have energetic basis, right? But all of these ideas and all the energetic work and cacao, at least in my experience, has been such a grounding force to really anchor all of that in. And it does activate your brain in um like the ways that you've shared. And one other thing that I know about even coffee and blueberries and cacao, I forget what the word is for it, but it allows you to shift the wiring in your brain. And so if you've been doing a lot of mindset work, if you've been doing like all the theoretical like logic stuff, but you're not feeling a difference, cacao is like such a beautiful way to integrate that into like a feeling aspect. And that's one of the things that I really, really love about it. And I love that you spoke to the spirit of it because this is something that I feel this way about like all things really. Like this is kind of maybe a semi neurospicy trait, like autistic a little bit, but it's like I see the energy and the personality almost in all things, like this mirror, like plants, water, all these things. And when you learn to cultivate that connection with it, of like, this is a being that I'm connecting with, it allows you to create a new level of intimacy with yourself, inside your body, with the plant, with the world, with the people you're sitting in ceremony with. Um, yeah, and it really just it changes the game. It really does.
I love you so much. You call it neurospicy, I call it mystic or occult.
Basically the same. There's so many different names for it, right? Like,
AKA I'm a mystic.
yeah,
I'm gonna start using that. I like it.
I didn't coin it, so it's not my term, but I like that you like it.
Dang. Coined by
Yeah, we could say it. We could say that I did, but I definitely didn't. um, yeah. So there's a few different ways that we could take this conversation. I'm feeling like maybe we touch a little bit on how to cultivate a relationship with cacao.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. So, do you want to share your experience with coming into the Cacao Facilitator and Attunement course and like the portal of love and how that has enhanced your relationship with cacao?
Yes. Okay, so I feel like everything is like a little mystical, magical ceremony journey thing. And I feel like this was so let me start here. Last year I did an I had an entire experience with plant medicine, and it kind of like really shook me to my core, especially because the people that I was surrounding myself with, the energies that I was letting in, and it really almost initiated me into plant medicine work on a really deeper level, made me aware of like what I wanted to cultivate in ceremonial spaces, the kind of energy that I wanted to be around. And so I was already very aware of these things. And I kind of went into like a downward spiral after having that experience, just because a lot of emotions were coming up, a lot of past life things. I felt like I had honestly like entities attached to me, which is a whole nother topic in itself. But I felt like I had a lot of attachments that were coming up that were almost out of my control, but also it was like a reality that I was playing into in some ways. And so Helia had been posting about this Portal of Love Cacao Facilitator Attunement course. And I was like eyeing it up. And I was like, oh, that feels like amazing. Like, I love, like, yes. And I accidentally responded to a post where she was like, it was a poll, and it was like, I want more information or something like that. And I accidentally responded to it thinking it was like something else. And then she messaged me, and I was like, oh, wait, this is the path. Like, oh, wait, I'm being guided. I'm being initiated once again. And the way that it felt in my body was just like, yeah, no brainer. Like, no brainer. Everything was aligned for it. So it was just like, yeah, this makes sense. And I think that's one thing about plant medicine is like it will find you. Like even if Healy and I talk about this all the time, even if you like avoid it or like you're like pushing it away or like, oh no, that's not for me, like if it's for you, like it will find you. And so that was kind of my experience. And then we come into the space and it was just like this, I'm gonna call it like a flood of love, but sometimes love isn't always happy rainbows, sunshines, butterflies, all the things. Sometimes love is sitting with the darkness. Sometimes love is processing unresolved emotions. Sometimes love is realizing where you're lacking in energetic boundaries, etc., etc. The list can go on and on. And so when we first stepped into the portal, I was wrapped up in grief, in I was distraught in so many ways. There was a lot of things that I wasn't processing that I was just kind of like avoiding and trying to run away from. And Cacao was like, yeah, hi, we have some work to do. And because I felt, oh, this is another thing I wanted to touch on, because I felt so connected and supported by this specific cacao that we were working with, which is Pakal cacao, which comes from Palenque, where Helia is. And it's a very masculine cacao, and I'll let you talk about that. But it's very masculine cacao. And so I felt really held and supported. And it allowed me to actually go into these emotions where I didn't necessarily feel safe before. And through that process, it was like this entire rebirth situation of my soul, of my energy. I experienced so much clarity, so much love, so much more capacity to be with my emotions. And yeah, just being in that space is so special. Like we were talking the other day, we're like the portal of love is never gonna end. Like it's just gonna continue forever. But yeah, I would love to hear your experience with it, and then also if you want to touch on the specific cacao that we used to
Yeah,
or we worked with.
I've loved witnessing your journey in the space because we've talked about this before, but when we're working intentionally with plant medicine, when you just receive it and you get it and you do the freaking work with it and you go into the depths, you go into the darkness, you go into the love, you go into the creation, and you're present is what it is. It's you become so present with what is around you without fighting it that you just like let it in to work. That's where the magic happens. And so like watching you alchemize your life over the last 4 weeks that we've been in the container, wow, it's been really special. And that goes for everyone in the space. Everyone's been on such profound journeys. And for myself, I want to talk a little bit like why 31-day attunement or 21-day attunement. So it takes like 21 days to create a habit and to create a relationship and to build an awareness around something. So for Reiki or anything else that I do, you start with 21 days on self because you have to know the energies that you are going to be sharing with other people. You have to do the work before you share the work. You have to develop your understanding of the voice of cacao, of energy, of tattooing, whatever it is, there is a process where you have to like know your medicine before you can share it. Because if you're not doing your work, you're just finding these reflections of people to mirror the work back and forth, and it's just messy, and it's nothing actually happens, like it just becomes a shit show. And I feel like ceremony is beautiful. It could be a place to open your heart and like get everything that you need in that moment. But if you're not sitting down and doing like the deep work, to hold the medicine and to hold the space, then you can only go as far as that original intention, which is beautiful. A lot of people, that's where they need to go. But with Cacao del Sol, we're creating something very different and working with Cacao to open ourselves to the magic of life, to bring in that masculine structure, to bring in that feminine support, to bring in that like healthy joy and excitement of the child, like all of these energies like encapsulated into one container. And so for me, the 21 days, I've worked with Cacao for a long time, but it was like as soon as Bree and I opened this container, I was like 31 days, every day we work with Cacao. And I'm on the journey, Bree's on the journey, we're all on the journey together. Um, and my intention is to always learn from everyone in the space because we're all we all have different relationships. Like I could have a relationship with you, and then like my best friend could have a relationship with you, and then you guys have a relationship, and they're completely different, but we could all learn from each other, and like I could learn from your relationship with this person. And so I feel like when you're in a container and you're doing the work, not just with yourself, but with a reflection of other people, what we learn and what we experience together is so much bigger because we're all reflecting and sharing and holding space for and encouraging and loving. And it becomes this really beautiful way of letting the spirit in and held in a group of people. And I think what had come through last week is that we had all done so much work in our lives that we needed like the community and the love to purge to that grief. A lot of us had grief coming up. A lot of us had like past pains, family stuff. And so that's what the 21 day was for me, was like this flushing process. And it's like it flushes things through and builds you with new energy. And so it's like not this depletion but this filling up of and releasing as you're filling yourself up. And once our cup's full, we get to share with others. So that was my experience and my intention behind the 21 days. And then we did a 3-day fast to close the 21 days. Do you want to talk about that, or should I talk about the call first?
Let's talk about the call first, and then we'll go into the fast after.
Okay. So cacao is grown in many places, in many regions, in Mexico, Central America, South America, even like over like Thailand, Africa, just like kind of hugging this jungle. And each place has its own frequency. If you think about the Amazon jungle or like the forest of Guatemala or the jungles here, they're all very different. They're all very different. The people are different, the traditions, the tribe, the culture, the different plants that grow around each thing. And so the energy of the cacao is inherently different everywhere you get the cacao from, and then even each batch with the people who have worked with the cacao and like roasted it and grinded it and put their intentions into it. So it's all very different. But here in Palenque specifically, there is a strong masculine presence because of Pakal, which was the Mayan ruler and leader here for 60, 70 something years.
Mm-hmm.
Very young age until the end of his ruling. And he was a very like great leader, and they worked with cacao and a lot in that time. And Palenque knew great peace and a lot of love. And so when I got here, I was kind of pulled here in a meditation space. I just kept hearing Chiapas, 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 Palenque. And I was like, I feel like I need to go there and connect with cacao. And when I got here, it was very elusive. And you can think of like the elusiveness being when your masculine is ungrounded, right? And so I had to do some like masculine work to get here, to like ground myself, to go through the things, the structures, like that false sense of foundation that I had, and like this needing to build actual structure and foundation and like stability. And so as I started to alchemize this process with drinking the cacao here every day, I thought I was coming here to find sourcing, but it was like, no, you need to do the work with the okay, so here I am my ass off with masculine. And then I meet this really amazing friend of mine, Casey, and his partner, Lore. And he works with the cacao from here. And I was like, and he actually has, I knew the name Pakal was going to be the name of this cacao. He works with cacao and names it Pakal. And I was like, okay, this cacao needs to be more masculine energy. Like, so I've been working with him to develop the Pakal cacao, where we took it to the temples here, the Mayan, they call them ruins, but they're still alive. We took them there and gave a blessing to the cacao and put the intention to lead with love. And for, it was a small batch, whoever got a pound of the cacao, as you're working with it, it's supposed to help you unlock this masculine energy of leadership with a feminine balance of like this heart expressed leadership. And so that's like a synopsis of the Pakal cacao.
Yes. Yes. And you can feel it for sure. Um, there's one thing I want to ask you. So I know, I don't know the specifics, but I know, I remember you saying this. The fat content is what makes it more, no, the fat content is the feminine, and because it has less fat content, that's what makes it more masculine, the makeup of this particular cacao.
This is my okay. So there's cacao butter, right? Mantequilla de cacao is the fat in cacao. What they extract when you have cacao powder, that fat has been extracted out and most likely sold to some skincare company because cacao butter makes great facial products. So they're like stripping the feminine essence, the fat being the nourishing, it's hydrating, it hydrates the body and the cells, and it's like this really, really great fat for the body. Has a lot of like magnesium and stuff. And then I see the powder as like the masculine essence. And so when they're together, like in the paste that we have, it has the masculine and the feminine. But I've had a lot of cacao that's a little bit fattier. And I've noticed that this one's a little bit more, not as fatty, but still has like a good amount of fat. So to me, it just feels a little bit more masculine, even in the content and the way that it's made up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not like scientifically or like proven. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
But when you shared that, it made sense to me because I noticed a difference in the way, like when I was making it, because when you're making it, when you're communicating with the spirit of cacao, like you speak to it as you're making it, as you're preparing it, you sing to it. I was doing like a lot of light language transmissions into it, just like prompted by the spirit itself. And it was more of like my masculine aspects that were coming online. It was very like structured in the way that I was preparing it. It was very like, yeah, it just has that feel to it. And when you shared that, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense, especially in the way that, like, I noticed that when it's more fatty, at least in my experience, when it has more of that feminine essence, it foams more in a way. Like it's more like airy almost throughout. And this one specifically, the call, it was like more not thick, but I want to say watery, but not,
It's
but like it had more of what?
smooth.
Yes. Yes, that's a great way to describe it. Yes. Yeah, and I really loved that about it. And I loved being able to notice the differences. Like I haven't worked with cacao ceremonially. I keep saying that word really weird. Ceremonially. Um for a very long time. It's usually just been like another drink because I love my hot drinks. So I'll just like add it to the roster, right? Especially when I first started working with it. And as I've connected more deeply with you, Cacao del Sol, and just the spirit of cacao in general, it's like actually a very ceremonial experience, and working with it in that way really shifts the way that you receive the medicine as well. And getting to know it like you would a partner or anyone else that you're in relationship with strengthens and deepens that connection, but it also adds this essence of like deep reverence and respect, which for me is so necessary in my intimate relationships. And that's something that I wasn't really receiving in my physical world, of like having that respect and having that level of intimacy. And so to bring that back into my sphere was so grounding, like we've been talking about, but it was also just this like liberation of realizing that that's a need that I have, and that that need gets to be met not only through my relationship with plants, with cacao, but in my actual human relationships too. So yeah.
I love.
Yeah. I love this cacao. Honestly, I love it so much. And I love the cacao that you got that was on the llamas. Like I love how the cacao that you source always has a story with it, and I can connect to the story with it, and that helps me to connect more deeply to the spirit of the specific cacao that I'm working with. And this is something that I would do with like rapé, but with having the story of the cacao, like it just shifts the game, because I was before I was getting it from other places. I honestly don't even remember the brand, but it was like some like major brand that sells it. And it was still ceremonial cacao paste, but it wasn't, I didn't have that like story behind it. And I feel like when you're connected to it and connected to the story, the essence of it can be so much more supportive.
I know what you mean. It's almost like when you know a little bit about your family roots, even, it's easier to connect. If you have no idea, like like I feel way more connected to my mom's lineage because I know where like her mom came from and her dad came from and their families came from. And like my dad's side of the lineage, it feels a little bit more aloof because I'm like, I don't know, like back. And so that's what I really love about single origin or fair trade, ethical trade cacao is that we know where it's coming from. It's not just being it's a very intentional process, which I feel is really important with cacao because of the exploitation and the way that it has been abused for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Any plant medicine, right? But yeah, specifically working with cacao and the fact that it has the feminine and the masculine and the child essence, it's like the holy trinity. Yeah. And I want to say the cacao that I was getting before, it was fair trade. It was all those things. They had a story on the website, but it was just a very broad story. It was like Ecuadorian cacao, and it was just a very broad story. And I feel just more connected to a story that has the single origin aspect to it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the fast.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay, this is the one that I've gotten like the most questions about. People who are like, "Oh my gosh, I want to hear your breakthroughs. I want to hear like what your experience was. How did it change your life?" and stuff like that. So, yeah, Helia was like, "Okay, we can do this together or you don't have to do it." It was a very like optional thing, but it just kind of seemed logical to me to do that after we had done like I think it was 18 days at that point of the attunement, or 19 days of the attunement. And it was just like, yeah, like I want to connect deeper on this deeper level. And it was an initiation for me, definitely. It was the first time that I had fasted in about a year. And the last time that I had fasted was a water fast for 2 weeks, almost. And that fast was very like not, it's not that it wasn't intentional, but it was kind of like thrust upon me, versus like this was very intentional. And I got to really speak to the medicine on a different way of like not only sitting with the cacao daily, but roasting the beans and cracking them open and having them in my hands. And like it almost connected me to ancestral roots. Like I'm not Mesoamerican in any way, but I definitely have like past lives and ancestors that guide me from that region. And I felt very deeply connected to those spirits and to a deeper purpose, a deeper sense of like mission, um, my feminine essence way more because I know from other past ceremonial experiences, like the women are usually the ones who are preparing the plants. So like I don't know if that's true for cacao, but I know that's true for like peyote and other plant medicines like that. It's usually the women who are the women shamans who are like actually with the medicine taking the go ahead.
That's interesting because almost every space I've been in, it's been opposite. It's been the masculine.
That's so
With
interesting.
I've worked with hickory, like peyote. Even when I was just in this retreat in Peru, it was the Juan Carlos Tamenchi's dad that prepared all the medicine, and
Wow.
I, I don't know. I have a different little thing with the masculine, I guess.
That's so interesting. And I also think maybe it's because you're on the opposite side. Like this is more east and that's more west, maybe potentially. But yeah, in my experience, that was like the experience. So it can anyway. So having that reference point, it connected me more to the feminine, and I just felt like, and the feminine of being in service, like being of service to the medicine, being of service to myself, being of service to my body, being of service to something bigger than me. Because we were weaving this collective web together when we were fasting together, and holding space in that way was just so transformative. I got so many messages dropped into my channel that were just like, you need to do this, like so clear direction that I wasn't receiving before because I was so bogged down in whatever I was playing with, playing in. And yeah, I ended up fasting. I think it was like 4 days for me, because I unintentionally started early and then I was just like, okay, we're full sending this. And I had a lot of experiences of like shifts in my body, especially in my womb space, of like almost like a turning of a key, if that makes sense. So it was like shifting like the neurons in my cells of just like, hey, we're gonna do it this way now. Hey, we're gonna shift this way now. Hey, like you can let go of control. You don't need to have this much control. Like, and it also activated me in discipline in a lot of ways as well. So yeah, that's my little experience. Maybe I'll have more to say, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Got that. I I know how big it was, and I could feel it just in your words and just like the way that this past week has shifted everything in
Yeah.
life and experience and like plans. It's been really crazy. Um, and with cacao, I believe it's mostly women that work with it, just because women were primarily like doing the farm work and the preparing of things. I think more of just like now things are a little bit different in different places. Um, for me, this is my third cacao fast. And it just felt really important to offer this because I do a lot of fasting, a lot with water before I came to Palenque. Usually it's just like 3 days of only water. Um, and as a means of like spiritual cleansing and receptivity, because whenever we fast, we see how connected we are to fixing our emotional body and planes with consumption, whether it's social media or food or, ooh, I want a piece of chocolate. Ooh, I want this thing. And so the more that I fast, the less that I actually feel hungry in
Yeah.
my day. And it's like when I need nutrients, I eat and I eat healthy. And before, even like when I'm fasting and I'm not in a very like centered and grounded place and I'm not doing it with the best intentions, then that fight is harder in myself where I'm like binge watching like Food Networky kind of stuff on Instagram. Like, dude, this recipe looks bomb. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What emotions am I feeding right now? And so fasting can show us a lot. Um, and one of the beautiful things about fasting with a plant or with cacao is that you're creating this space where it's like the only thing that I'm receiving, I'm letting go, I'm surrendering my need for food, for coffee, for alcohol, for tobacco, for sex, for anything. And receiving the energies and the guidance of cacao. And so when I'm feeling hungry, I go get a couple cacao beans and I munch on the cacao beans and I just feel the energy of it and like the presence of the spirit. And so for me, it's a really beautiful way to kind of show me where I'm at in the sphere of consuming and giving. Like I can feel where I am in that and align it and bring that to like a fine point. And the first time I did the cacao fast was here in Palenque. My intention, I was planning on moving. And my intention was to, okay, I'm about to leave Palenque. Like, if I'm meant to connect with the cacao source here, please open. Like, and every day I worked with the cacao. I sat at an altar that I built of all of it was really beautiful. And the third day I went to the pyramids here and I took a cacao offering and I went and meditated as like these Mexica dancers were dancing under this pyramid. And I opened my eyes to go like give my cacao to the temple of Bacal so I could like ask permission. And as I am opening my eyes, Casey, the guy that I sourced from, was standing right there in the eye shot of the Pakal tomb. And I just gave him the cacao bean. Him and his partner had like three. So all three of us got one. And I was like, okay, that was interesting. And then after that, all doors opened. Like I ended up staying here. The cacao sourcing was right there. We had a really beautiful connection. Now we're like collaborating in different ways. I have community forming here. I found home. And it was like, boom, all of these things were just like the doors opened to me here after feeling like I had to do so much work to even figure out how to navigate the realm of the jungle here. It's very different. So this last cacao fast, I was like, okay, I could feel that death process ending that I've been in the last like 8, 9 months. And I was like, now it's time for the rebirth process. So during the middle of our cacao fast, I finally received the keys to my new apartment that I had been waiting for so long. And it felt like I finally got to say goodbye to my old reality. And now I feel like everything is different. So it has completely readjusted and shifted the way that my life, the fabric of my life, the fabric of my reality, everything feels different. My body feels different. Um, I feel like light and fresh again, which feels really good.
Yes, I love this. And I love what you said about, you touched very briefly on it opening a door. And I think that's really like the experience that I had as well is like an opening of a door. And your door is going to be unique to you, but I always find that fasting like really resets the doors that you're walking into as well. And so like in my experience with fasting, every single time I fast, I shift internally and then my external state shifts as well. And fasting with cacao, I feel like is a different experience because you're being led and guided by something that's bigger than you. And it's not all just on you. It's like this collaboration and dance between you and the spirit of cacao, which opens different doors, right? And like that feeling of being held and connected in that way is just, it's liberating. Yeah. And I,
I
what?
said I agree.
Yeah, and I love what you said about the Food Network thing because on the last day of the fast, I definitely caught myself watching videos on TikTok that were just like food recipes, and I was in the same like I was like, "Oh, what emotions am I avoiding right now?" And I realized it was like a lot of shame around like just various different things. But once I realized that my desire to like continue to look at it just kind of went away. But then once the fast was over, I was like, oh, I'm gonna start eating way different. Like these recipes that I was looking at, they were healthy. They were really healthy. They were, and I implemented that right away. I was like, okay, this isn't something for me to feel bad about. This is just showing me my redirection. And then post fast, I was able to take that action because the clarity came. And then you don't always need to take the action right away, right? Like you get to sit with it before you take the action. And I think that's another thing working ceremonially with cacao has taught me is like you get to let it sit in your body for a second and then you can move. And then you can do what you need to do. Then you can be called and pulled to the places. But like let yourself sit with it and feel it for a second. Let yourself actually receive it. Let yourself actually be the receiver of the medicine rather than trying to like we talk a lot about intention with plant medicine and I think that's really important, but it's also about allowing yourself to open up to the infinite potential that the medicine has for you, which is a conversation that we've had together as well. And I think that's something that cacao is really great for because it does open your heart and it can hold the space for it.
I love that.
Yeah.
You touch on all like the really beautiful aspects, and I'm like trying to ground back into them. And something that I've heard you say repetitively is like that it grounds it into the body. And I feel this is the most powerful aspect of cacao is that some plant medicines or some medicines in general into this very like astral space or yeah, most of them take you into this like kind of astral heady space. Some of them bring you really deep in the body, like tobacco and those kinds of plants. But cacao opens the blood vessels in your body, and you just are flooded with minerals and vitamins and endorphins. And so it's like anything that you've been resisting in the body, it's like the floodgates open and it allows you to integrate. You could have worked with other plant medicines or other things, and it allows you to like actually integrate it into your body, into your vessel. Like I've had womb healings with cacao. I've had this feeling of feeling safe. I've allowed my pleasure body and my energetic body to expand with cacao because it's grounding. She's thick, you know what I mean? She brings you into your body. It's a very like luscious experience, and so I feel like it's a great integrating tool as well as a plant medicine. Like
Yeah.
just to bring things present into your senses. You know, like oh wait, I'm not living up in the I am living in the stars, but in my body. You know what I mean? Like there's a connection there now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it brings it like here, front and center. Like a lot of the time, like even if it's like suppressed in the body, it'll bring it here, front and center. Like, so wherever it is, it's coming out to play and cacao is ready to hold space for it.
Yes. And cacao is such a gentle
Oh, yeah.
medicine. It works on the subtleties. Uh, I will say that there has been times where it didn't feel so subtle. When I first started going bigger cacao ceremonies like in Tepoztlan. Mostly I work with cacao more like a plant medicine in my own personal space, sharing with other people, like having like a very intimate container. I do like to have ceremonies. I do like to be in these bigger groups and have these experiences of community and connection. But it does a lot of subtle work. So like when we're working on it on a subtle level, it can shift a lot of things in a time frame that is natural to your rhythm of your personal
Right.
life. But I've been in some ceremonies with a lot of people in cacao, and just feeling like someone punched me in the solar plexus or in the stomach, and I felt so much pain in my body and like didn't know how to like move it, and it was just like this discomfort. And so it can be a really strong medicine. It'll get you where you need to be got. But it's also so gentle, so subtle, so loving that it becomes this like self love ritual. That's what I've noticed by the end of my process for the 21 days and my 3-day fast was that I always thought that I had self-love, but it wasn't until like I stepped into integration where I felt the gratitude and the love that I have always wanted to feel from everyone and everything else, like just beaming out of me. And I was like, I don't fucking need anything else. Excuse my language, Instagram, but like for real, I have everything. And no, I don't have thousands of dollars or $1 million, but my internal wealth and the wealth of my reality and the wealth of the people in my life and like the mission I'm here to do, there's nothing that can like put shade on that. You know what I mean? Like that's the solid.
Yeah, and I think that's another really important component about cacao is it was used as currency and it has a lot of value historically. And when you tune into that, you can tune into the own value that you have within your soul. And then money isn't, it's like, it's not about money, it's about feeling the feelings. And then the money shows up, and then the opportunities show up. And cacao has been something that like really clicked a lot of things about value for me as well. Like like self-love is something is currency, right? And cacao beans are currency, and sharing that with the earth, sharing that with other individuals, that's currency. And having that like that value externalized in a way that isn't necessarily money is how you cultivate true wealth. Yeah, and I love cacao because it's rich. It's rich in so many different ways, and it will, like you were saying, it punched you in the solar plexus. Oh my gosh, in the solar plexus. Okay, that was me the first week. It was like punching me in the heart. It was like stabbing me in the heart, but it wasn't the cacao. It was just like all of these emotions that were I was avoiding feeling, and cacao was like, "Hey, here's all this value that you're not using." And so it gives you that reframe of like everything is valuable. It's dependent on how you choose to look at it. And then once you can shift your perspective, then everything else in your world shifts.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that because, uh, yeah, I wanted to talk about that, the value aspect, because that has really been something that, especially integration week, like I feel like that really like landed in me. Like it's the value that you give things, and then also what you're willing to do about it is value.
I'm glad you brought integration
Yeah.
because we want to on
Yes.
integration.
Let's do it.
Do you want to start or do you want me?
Yeah, sure. I can start. What do we want to? No, maybe you start. Hold on. Okay. The train
Okay.
is a little, but
So for integration, um, during the process, portal of love, Brie and I process not how because we have to learn how to not become dependent on things and how to receive everything we just received over the last 21 days and allow it to settle into place and not just keep throwing more medicine or more at things, and it becomes like this coping we create a habit, we also need to create space for that energy, for that to not be a dependence,
Right.
not this thing that we need in order to feel in our bodies, that we need in order to feel good, that we need in order to create, that we need in order to X, Y, Z. Unless we're working with cacao for um, different reasons, like if I was experiencing a depressive state or like an anxiety, then I might work with it a little bit longer to help pull myself out of that space. But then, like, knowing when to be like, okay, now I need to integrate what I just received and do this work and let things like shift into place. And then I'll work with the cacao again when I feel it, not when my mind thinks I need it, but when my soul and my heart and my being is like singing for the cacao again. And I feel like it's really important because cacao is one of those things that they say you can drink every day, but it does release serotonin. It releases dopamine. It releases all of these feel good chemicals in our brain. So we need to know how to build those up in ourselves and not be reliant on something else to bring us these feel good energies. So I feel like it's important to integrate and to not create anything as a daily habit.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with this so much. Yeah, anything. And I think that goes into this idea of respect too. Because when you have, so I always say addiction cannot coexist with respect. And the difference between addiction and a relationship is respect. So when you have respect, you're not using something just because it can give you something. You're cultivating an actual relationship with it. You're taking into account, you know, your ability to be sovereign outside of that relationship. And I think that's one of the major things working with plant medicine is being able to have that integration period, being able to have that space where you can come back into your own energy. I mean, like we're always all connected, right? But like being able to come back into your own energy and really integrate what you've learned and integrate it into your own energetic signature rather than just continuing to, it's like almost graspy energy. That's kind of how I see it. Because you don't truly need anything else. Yes, these tools can be really impactful and really helpful. Like even like mindset work, even like working with your favorite mentor, like or working with plant medicine. Like to me, I see working with plant medicine as like working with a mentor because that's how I see the spirit. But it's like it's the same concept. It's like you need to be able to come back into yourself and form opinions for yourself, form judgments for yourself, like discernments for yourself, and be able to like really know what's true for you, which you do by tuning in and tapping into your own heart. And cacao can be a really powerful thing for helping you to actually, you know, open the gates and get off all the gunk. But if you don't take the space to actually like you were saying, integrate it and not work with the medicine, it that's I feel like when you're not working with the medicine, that's when the medicine works the most through you. Because then you have the space for it to channel through you etherically rather than needing it to be that like force for you to have that stability.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love what you said about addiction and respect. I've heard something similar, but a different take on it, that addiction and empowerment is like one little thing away, and the difference is addiction is when you give your power to something, and empowerment is when you receive your power through something.
Ah,
And
I
so
love
there's
that.
a fine line, right? Like, am I receiving myself back through this, or am I like giving myself to this
Yeah.
thing? And so I like to do a little check-in of like, okay, where am I at? Am I outside of myself or am I in myself? Am I reaching for myself through this thing, or am I receiving more of myself through this thing?
Yeah.
And that's always a good check-in with anything, with relationships, with all kinds of relationships, because everything's a relationship, right?
Yeah. Literally, yeah. Yeah, and I think somatics and like doing like yoga, like any of those practices that really get you back into the body, whether it's just like presence meditation, yoga, like we did Kundalini yoga, which was very powerful. And just like coming back into the body, coming back into your own space is going to be really impactful for when you are in those moments of like wanting the thing, but knowing that you need space from the thing, whatever it may be.
Exactly. I love that. Did you have other questions or topics?
No, I think we touched on everything. Did you have anything come
Yeah,
through?
a few people asked. I had a couple questions asked. One of the questions was, what is your favorite thing to do when you're drinking cacao? What's your favorite like activity? Um, for myself, I really enjoy being outside and exploring outside after drinking cacao. I feel like cacao opens the kind of like your third eye a bit in a way of like seeing things differently and seeing things more vibrant and magical and like the energy of things. Yesterday, I had a cacao like ceremony with the waterfall, and then I got in the water and I was just like floating, and I swear I could see fractals in the waterfall, and I was like, whoa, this feels psychedelic right now. And it was just, the nature was speaking to me like with this energy of cacao like wrapped around me. So I think that's my favorite thing, is like going on a swim or hiking or doing something that connects me deeper to nature.
Yeah, I love doing that too, and I think that's one of my favorite things too. I also, for me, it's like that, and then also closing my eyes and just like going within. Like I really love just being able, I feel like cacao allows me to deeply tap into my body and I can just like shut everything else off outside. Not in a way where it's like I'm not aware of it, but in a way where it's like I can fully tune in to what's going on inside. And being in nature really helps with that too. So the two coupled is like,
Oh, I love that. I do find, especially when I'm fasting with cacao, my meditations are profound.
yeah,
It's like I sit down and I close my eyes and I feel all of my energy go whoop, and I'm like, whoa.
it's like
I
the most centering thing in the world.
first
Like,
close my eyes.
yeah. Yeah, and some like when I like sometimes when I'm just, off like trying to meditate, like it takes me a hot second to like really like ground in and focus. But when I'm working with cacao, it's just like instantaneous. Like, yeah.
Here, grounded, grounding. I had another question, which I found really interesting. I actually did a lot of research before I came here so I could answer this question
I'm
appropriately.
excited.
Okay, the question was, do I ever sleep? I didn't even know what oxalates were.
Wait, can you repeat it? I didn't hear.
Oh, I was asked if I ever worry about the oxalates in cacao.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't even know what an oxalate is.
The only reason I know kind of very, very vaguely what that is because Congo water has the same properties. So,
Okay. Yeah. So I was told, I was asked this question. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do some research and I'm going to look into a lot of different things and see what I find. So oxalates are actually can impair the way that we receive mineral absorption because it binds certain minerals together. And so it can make things less bioavailable for the body. And also, if you're prone to kidney stones, it can create kidney stones. Well, my intuition told me immediately, no, I'm not concerned about this. I know hundreds and hundreds of people that work with cacao all the time. I've never heard of anyone having a kidney stone, and I've actually healed a lot of my own like gut biome, and there's been so many things that I've healed, and that I, even when I fast, I feel so satiated with cacao. I don't feel hungry. And there's like so many vitamins and minerals that I know my body is getting. And like if
yeah.
my muscles are sore or if I'm tired, like I feel the magnesium going into my body. Um, But then I wanted to do a little bit more research because it's one of the higher oxidative like fruits. And also, so is spinach, so is legumes, so is potatoes. Like all of these things are very high in oxalates. So I found this really amazing YouTube video, and I can share it with anyone who wants to watch it, about this guy that is also very passionate about cacao and chocolate and the bioavailability, and he's done a lot of the research. So I found this video. He did the research for me. Um, but what he was saying is when you eat like a well-rounded diet, you have less to concern about. And cacao is high in fiber, it's high in magnesium, which magnesium will actually like relax the body and it can help to not create like crystalline structures. And cacao has flavonoids too. So there's like a specific flavonoid that basically allows for more absorption of minerals. It actually also helps your gut microbiome. And so kidney stones, there's like 1% to 5% of the world that gets kidney stones, but in the US it's 10% of people. It's actually quite a bit higher. Um, if you're worried about kidney stones, dietary oxalates is only like one tiny factor because the main contributing factors is genetics and your gut biome. And so especially fermented cacao, it actually cuts out most of those oxalates anyways. But also having a sedentary life, a poor diet, and no hydration, that's what you should be worried more about for creating kidney stones. And there's been studies, people drinking cacao actually got healthier and like were less likely to have stones. So I feel like if you look at the food holistically and the medicine holistically rather than this one aspect, they've got all of these different things, as well as the theobromine inhibits crystallization of uric acid, which causes kidney stones. So it might have a bit of oxalates, but the other things in cacao kind of like counterbalance that and provides a healthy means for the body.
Yeah, I love that you got this question because when I first started working with Kangen water, this was like a major question that would come up. They'd be like, "Oh, but like the pH level doesn't that?" And because it has a lot of oxalate, like it has the same properties, not exactly the same, but it has hydrogen ions, which basically does the same thing that this person is concerned about. And so it's actually recommended people who have kidney problems don't have like you shouldn't use Kangen water, especially not 9.5, because of this reason. But the thing I want to say about that is a lot of the time, the reason that our organs are failing is because of stress and your inability to process emotions. So, a lot of the time, it has very not anything to do with the food that you're consuming. Because, I mean, it does play a part, don't get me wrong. But, like, ideally, your body's in a really healthy state, it's processing its emotions, it's going to be able to process the junk food. Like, it's the same concept. So when I first started working with Kangen water, a lot of people were like, "Oh, like it messes up the pH of the stomach, like all of this stuff." And really, it's like, well, no, that's like very small percentage of people actually have that issue. The other issue is actually related to your lifestyle, like you were saying, like sedentary lifestyle, and that attributes to stress and all these other things. So yeah, I love that this is a question because
Do you hear that? Maybe
no.
there's the howler monkeys are roaring. They're
Hello, howler monkeys.
yeah, I found that so interesting. And also, like realistically, if we're eating a shit ton of junk food, it's most likely because we're not aligned with our emotional experience. Like, honestly, there's times where I'm just like, I want a bag of chips. I want to get some muddy cookies and
Yeah.
like process. And when I'm doing that, it's mostly because I have been like so ungrounded that I need something to like bring me back to the physical reality. And there's usually some avoidance that I've been experiencing. So, yeah, I find it really interesting. Oh,
Oh,
there's a
I
baby
heard that.
monkey.
I heard that.
They're loud. They're wild. Yeah, so that was a really good question. I love when people ask me those kind of like controversial questions because then it opens up a research portal, and we all know that I love a little bit of a sciencey research.
Yeah. And it's cool to see like the conversation too, like because it's interesting. I always think about it like the way that your mindset is the things that you'll point out. So it's interesting to see like what is brought to the surface in that way and just have that reflection too.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else we wanted to touch on before we close this? Okay, I have a
Play.
question. Yes, play.
My cat is over here playing. I'm a little annoyed at her because she's making a lot of noise. But I'm realizing, oh my gosh, this is an invitation to bring this into the conversation. Yeah. Helia started the portal with talking about how she wanted to call in more play and fun and adventure, and that Cacao, like working with Cacao, is really about inviting in that essence of play. And I think that's such a key part of ceremonial work in general, is inviting in that like curiosity, that inner child, that essence of play and fun, and making life like a beautiful dance of integrating the play with the seriousness and having those moments where you really just do things because it's fun and playful. And yeah. Oh, we lost her. Let's see if we can get her back on here. There we go.
Oh, my bad. I heard all of it, and then the monkeys were being so loud that I didn't want the interference of the voice, so I tried to like mute it.
It's okay. I'm glad you heard it.
Yeah, the play. I was gonna ask you. Um, so the 3 weeks has been like the first 3 weeks was a deep metamorphosis process, and then we had the integration week. And so, my question for you is like, what are you opening to chapter with Cacao? And I know you touched on play, but if you want to bring anything else to the surface, then
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I'm not traditionally, but like my personality is very like, I love to like explore. I'm very expansive. I'm very like, and to be confined to a specific space kind of makes me feel very limited. So, in this new chapter, I'm opening myself up to more exploration, more play. I'm going to be traveling a lot more. I'm going to be moving places and doing things and opening myself up to more in-person experiences. That was really my intention during our integration call, is opening myself up to in-person experiences and lessening my grip on control, of trying to control everything and the outcomes and trying to make it all perfect, and kind of just like flowing with the mystery. That's something Cacao really brought to the surface for me, was flowing with the mystery of life and letting myself be guided and led. And I don't need to have it all planned out and figured out. I get to just be like pulled places and follow those hunches. And that's when I feel the most alive. That's when I feel the most playful. That's when I feel the most open to my experience. So I'm really excited to be indulging more in that energy and just kind of following the nudges of the universe as I navigate this new chapter, working with Cacao, working with plant medicine, working with my offers, and just sharing my magic with the world.
sending you the magic stars, watching it come to life.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been a really big part of this process. I literally, the amount of space that you've held for me to just die and be rebirthed and just like actually follow this and have trust in it is like more than I could ever ask for. So I'm so grateful.
Thank you. I'm like, sometimes you plan of like, what's the big gift that I offer people? Because we have lots of gifts, right? But what's the big thing that I provide for people? I'm like, yeah, I help people freaking die and come back to life. Help old you die so the new you that you know you are, could come to life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I say that in a nicer way? Life navigation, I can help you navigate your life.
Dark
I
Night
help
of
you
the Soul guidance.
dark night of the soul, bringing
Yeah,
life. Yeah, whatever. Um, just because I've been through so many death processes myself.
me too. So I feel it. But it's nice to have that like supporting figure to help you go through it. Like even if you know how to go through it, having someone witness you and hold space for you is like a whole different ballgame.
And I mean, I'm I'm not the type that just sits there and watches either. I'm gonna do it right with
Yeah.
you. Like, let's go, let's do this. It's been so magical. I'm just watching the birds. It's been so magical to embark on this journey with you and everyone else in the portal of love. Um, I feel like what's opening for me this next chapter is really about the collaborations that are happening within Cacao del Sol and growing the family, growing this team of really amazing people. And like, I'm excited to see like how you decide to shine within the medicine of cacao and just everyone. I feel like the space is growing. There's going to be more travel, more education, more spreading of cacao, going on this road trip in the States to share it, and then doing one in Mexico. And yeah, I feel like this next chapter is about, for me, like pulling out all of the deep work that I've done to uh, be seen and let my energy permeate and shift the things around me as I've shifted with just like presence.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. I'm here to like preach the gospel.
But I mean kinda. Like the truth of your heart is the gospel.
We're here to preach the gospel.
Something like that, right? Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
Thank you for coming live, and thank you to everyone who watched, tuned in, anyone who watches the replay. Love you.
We love you so much. If you have any questions about working with cacao, working ceremonially with plant medicine or cacao, I can't say that word today. You can just drop it in the comments. We will respond. Helia has that link to the research if you want more information on that. If you want more information on Cacao del Sol, I'll tag them in this post. And yeah, join the free Telegram group. Get in on the fun. Get in on the magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any?
All right.
Do you have anything else?
No,
Okay.
I feel really
We are complete. Okay. Talk soon.
excited.
Bye.
Bye.